On the day of my grand wedding, I was abducted and taken to a mountain bandit's den. After narrowly escaping with my life, I found that my half-sister had already taken my place and married into the Dingan Marquis's household. I cried and made a scene in the wedding hall. But the men's undergarments that fell from my embrace became undeniable proof of my promiscuity. Amidst everyone's scorn, Zane Gu stepped forward, torn and heartbroken, saying, "Kira, I believe you. But the Marquis's household cannot accept a tainted mistress. I'm afraid you'll have to endure this injustice." Thus, I became Zane Gu's concubine. But a year later, when the general's entire household was executed, he locked me in a pig cage and sank me to the bottom of the river. If it weren't for the general's household helping me rise to power, I would find a lowly woman like you, who has been ridden by thousands, disgusting to even look at. Now that the general's household has committed treason and rebellion, the entire family has been beheaded, and you're the only one left. My stepsister ordered people to tie a 1,000-pound stone to the pig cage, laughing with an innocent yet malicious expression. "Sister, you didn't cherish the bandit husband I gave you and insisted on coming back to seduce Zane. Since you're so shameless, it's only fitting that you be sunk in the pond." My eyes were wide with rage, and I unwillingly breathed my last breath in a suffocating agony. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the road after escaping the bandit's den. As I rushed into the celebratory hall of the Marquis's mansion, the clamor abruptly ceased. My mother, seated in the place of honor, had tears of joy still glistening at the corners of her eyes. She looked up and met my gaze as I stood at the entrance. She froze in astonishment. "Kira, how are you here?" Her disbelieving gaze shifted between me and the direction of the bridal chamber, her face pale as she murmured, "If you're here, then who was it that just performed the wedding ceremony with Zane Gu and was escorted into the bridal chamber?" Tears quickly welled up in my eyes. It was my sister. She tricked me into going to the outskirts, never expecting it was to take my place in the bridal sedan and marry into the Marquis's household. A single word stirs up 1,000 waves. Father sprang up from his seat and scolded sharply, "Absurd, Lu has gone too far. Today is the day she is to marry into the Qin family, who gave her the audacity to covet her elder sister's marriage and dare to substitute one thing for another." He immediately shouted, "Go and stop the bridal chamber at once. Tell Zane Gu that the bride has been mistaken." The Dowager Marchioness, recovering from the sudden turn of events, was the first to speak up. "In-laws, there must be some misunderstanding. Our Marquis's household only recognizes Kira as the bride." No sooner had the words been spoken than a maid beside Lu stepped forward, holding a snow-white handkerchief. As the handkerchief was unfolded, the striking red stain on it left everyone present frozen in shock. The maid could not conceal her smugness as she declared, "General, Madam, old Madam Hu, my young lady's purity has been given to Lord Hu. She is now his woman." It had been less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn since they entered the bridal chamber, removing the bridal veil, drinking the nuptial wine. Completing the entire ritual couldn't possibly have led to consummation so quickly. During the banquet, whispers immediately began to circulate. "What is this all about? A concubine-born daughter openly snatches her legitimate sister's marriage, eagerly offering herself. She has no shame at all. I heard that the second daughter of the Lu family, a concubine-born child from the general's household, was already promised to the merchant Qin family. She must have looked down on him for being a merchant, deceived her legitimate sister, and made herself a marquise. But wait, if the bride has been switched, wouldn't we know? Could the Marquis really not have noticed when he lifted the bridal veil?" The person who said this was immediately silenced. Everyone exchanged glances. Their expressions varied. Father was furious and pointed directly at the dowager lady who, "Madam, don't tell me your son is blind and can't even recognize his own bride, or perhaps he had a hand in switching the brides." The dowager lady who looked flustered, "My dear in-law, this is a grave injustice. The bride came from your general's mansion. If there's been a mistake, it can't all be blamed on my son." The mother nearly choked with rage, throwing the porcelain bowl in her hand directly to the ground, and ordered the matron behind her, Go fetch 3 feet of white silk and arsenic, and take them to the bridal chamber for El-Lu to choose. You can't do this, Consort Yang, who had been lurking furtively at the door for a long time, shrieked as she rushed in. She fell to her knees with a thud and wailed loudly in front of everyone, "Madam, my El is pure and gentle." It was the eldest young lady who missed the auspicious hour herself. My El was forced into the bridal sedan to avoid delaying the imperial marriage decree. She sacrificed herself to protect the entire general's manor. Yet you, for the sake of your own daughter's reputation, want to have my El killed. How cruel you are. What a forced entry into the bridal sedan, I sneered inwardly. Aunt Yang waited outside the Marquis's residence for at least half an hour. If she had no idea about the marriage substitution, I wouldn't believe it even if you beat me to death. Just then, the steward of the general's mansion hurried over. "Master, madam, the Qin family's wedding procession has arrived and is waiting at the gate of the general's mansion. But we've searched the entire estate and can't find the second young lady anywhere." Of course, they couldn't find her. She had already entered the bridal chamber of Lord Dingen and hastily completed the wedding night. Father and mother's faces were extremely unpleasant. El-Lu deliberately had the maid bring out the blood-stained handkerchief to let everyone witness that her purity had been given to Zhang Jiyu. There was absolutely no possibility of her marrying into the Qin family. Although the Qin family were merchants and of low status, much of the provisions for the border defense, which her brother had been guarding all these years, came from the Qin family. Father values gratitude the most, which is why he agreed to the marriage between El-Lu and the Qin family. El-Lu was unwilling, so she colluded with the mountain bandits, kidnapped me, and took my place in the marriage. If I couldn't escape, I would only face humiliation and death. Even if I managed to escape, I couldn't preserve my reputation, no matter which one it is, by tomorrow. The legitimate daughter of the Zhonghua general's mansion will become the benchmark of a wanton woman in the entire capital. In my previous life, I broke a leg, dragged myself through the mud, and barely escaped with my life. I believed El-Lu's excuse that she married into the Marquis's mansion to protect the general's mansion in my place, but she tore my clothes, and the moment a man's undergarments fell from my waist, everyone's malice pierced me like needles. I became a woman scorned by all, from the esteemed legitimate daughter of the nation's general's mansion. I fell to become a lowly concubine, even despised by the servants. My father, in hopes that Zhang Jiyu would treat me well, supported him step by step to the center of power. Back then, I was unaware that this man, whom I had given my heart and soul to and saw as my salvation, had long been secretly involved with El-Lu, and she was already pregnant with his child, even colluding with the mountain bandits to kill me had his involvement. His false affection for me was only to wait for the right moment to completely destroy the general's mansion. Mother's face turned cold as she ordered the nanny, "Go to the room and bring El-Lu out, tie her up and take her to the Qin family. Her marriage to Qin Yu was settled long ago. Once today's wedding date passes, she will be a member of the Qin family. Whether they beat or kill her, it has nothing to do with the general's mansion." Aunt Yang pushed the nanny aside, grabbed father, and cried out, "General, Elle is also your own daughter. Since she and the Marquis have already consummated their relationship, just let her have her way. Besides," she gave me a malicious glance, "the general's mansion doesn't have only Elle as a daughter. The Lu family's favor, if Elle cannot repay it, there will naturally be someone else to step in." Father's face turned livid with anger. A slap landed fiercely on Aunt Yang's face. "You raised such a daughter, snatching the marriage of the legitimate eldest sister, seducing her own brother-in-law, and shaming our general's mansion, and you have the audacity to suggest that the legitimate daughter of our general's mansion should take her place in marrying into the Qin family. Don't think I don't know what you and your daughter are scheming. Kira is my legitimate daughter, and the best marriage is naturally hers. El-Lu is just a concubine-born daughter. If she cannot behave properly, don't blame me for disregarding our father-daughter bond. Even if the Qin family decides to drown El-Lu in a pond today, I will still tie her up and send her over." The mother pulled Lady Yang aside. "Someone, take Lady Yang back and lock her in the ancestral hall to sober up properly." Lady Yang wailed as if the heavens and earth were shaking. being dragged away by force. Immediately, someone sneered with disdain, "What a pair of scheming mother and daughter. Daring to be so audacious as to seize the rightful elder sister's marriage and substitute her into a noble family. Utterly shameless, indeed, it's exactly the kind of despicable act one would expect. General Lu truly has had a misfortune in his family." Just then, Zhang Jiyu rushed in from outside. When he saw me, a flicker of discomfort crossed his face. "Kira, you're back," I sneered. "Naturally, you wouldn't want me back, interrupting your little affair with El Lu." He cut me off. His face ashen. "Stop making a fuss. This isn't El's fault. I had too much to drink earlier and mistook El for you, thinking we had already consummated the marriage. I'd like to ask you, where were you on our wedding day? Our marriage was decreed by the Emperor. If El hadn't taken your place in the bridal sedan, both the Marquis's residence and the General's mansion would be facing execution. El lost her innocence because of you. She made such a great sacrifice. So the position of the principal wife must be hers. This is what you owe her. Tomorrow, I will send a small sedan to bring you in through the side gate. El is gentle and kind, and she will surely be able to teach you to tame your unruly and fierce temper. When someone is rendered utterly speechless, they really can't help but laugh. Enter through the side gate. That is the treatment of a concubine. If it weren't for our engagement and my father's support in the imperial court, his long marginalized and declining Marquis household would never have had the chance to regain the emperor's attention. How dare he have the audacity to suggest that I, the legitimate daughter of the Zhenghua general's household, become his concubine? What an absurd notion. In my previous life, I fell victim to their schemes and misjudged people. In this lifetime, he isn't even worthy of shining my shoes. Father was so furious that he laughed instead. Lord Dingen, you have quite the nerve. After a few days of good living, you've forgotten the taste of humble origins. Do you need me to help you remember, to ask my legitimate daughter to be your concubine? Have you drunk so much that your mind is addled and your eyes blinded? You can't even tell if your own wife is human or a ghost. A man like you, always eyeing what's in the pot while eating from the bowl, is utterly unworthy of my Kira. Mother turned to the dowager of the Marquis. "Madam, the son you raised has insulted our general's manor and bullied my daughter. Do you think the Marquis's household will still see the son tomorrow if the general's manor files a complaint with the emperor?" Old lady who covered her chest, her face instantly turning deathly pale, and slapped her son across the face. "Zane, tell me, what on earth is going on? Were you also involved in today's substitute marriage?" Before Zane Jiyu could speak, El Lu ran out, clutching her thin dress, crying and pleading her innocence. "Sister, why would you harm me like this?" Before anyone could react, they heard her wailing loudly. "It was you who told me last night that you weren't ready to marry the Marquis, that you hadn't had enough fun, and that you'd fallen for the bandit leader from Juyuan Peak. How you loved his wild, domineering ways, how he could make you feel ecstasy in bed. You said your body had been used and ruined, and you were afraid the Marquis would find out on your wedding night. You forced me to take your place in the bridal chamber, threatening to kill my mother if I refused. I know my status as a concubine's daughter is lowly, and I have no power to resist you. Now that I've lost my innocence and you're framing and slandering me like this, I'll prove my purity by killing myself." She shouted about killing herself, but her body lunged straight at me. The outstretched hand directly tore open my outer garment. Nothing else fell from my waist except for my accessories. A flash of intense malice crossed El Lu's eyes, and just as she was about to lunge toward the soft chair behind me, Zane Jiyu wrapped his arms around her waist to stop her. I sneered. "What kind of wall did you run into, little sister? If you want to die but don't know how, I can teach you." Before anyone could react, I grabbed her by the collar, yanked hard, and with a loud thud, slammed her heavily against the wall. Bright red blood gushed out. "This is what it means to hit a wall, understand?" El Lu stared into my icy eyes and finally sensed a hint of menace. She backed away in fear. I laughed instead. "It seems one hit won't kill you. Since you're so determined to prove your innocence, let me help you a bit more. A few more hits should do the trick. Once you're dead, the charges you fabricated against me will be confirmed." She immediately screamed, "Kira Lu, You're silencing a witness. Even if you kill me, it won't change the fact that you colluded with the mountain bandits, under the watchful eyes of everyone. Father, his face ashen, slapped her across the face. Enough, not only did you steal your sister's marriage, but you also fabricated these despicable charges to slander your elder sister. I have no such unfilial and unjust daughter. Lu covered her face, a flash of resentment in her eyes. Father, I am also your daughter. Why do you never believe me and always favor Kira Lu? I said Kira Lu has been played with and used up, and I have evidence. I watched coldly as she pulled several letters from her bosom, proudly showing them to everyone. The letters had no words, only indecent and explicit erotic poses. And the woman depicted in them was my portrait. The signatures below all bore the black wolf mark of the Joyuan Peak bandits. Everyone collectively gasped in shock. Their gazes toward me grew more scrutinizing and shadowed. I remember these looks. They were exactly the same as in my past life when Lu pretended to tear open my clothes, revealing a man's undergarments. Disdain, disgust, sarcasm, as if I were a foul maggot in a mud pit. Mother stiffly shielded me behind her. Father defended with a dark expression. This is impossible. I believe in Kira. Lu's face twisted with smugness. Kira Lu, what more do you have to say? You're nothing but a fickle and promiscuous tramp. Even prostitutes are cleaner than you. I held my parents' cold hands and let out a light laugh. Under everyone's contemptuous gazes, I leisurely revealed the chastity mark on my arm. In my previous life, my chastity mark was covered by a wound, leaving me with no way to defend myself. Now, watching Lu's smile gradually freeze, I raised my hand and slapped her face hard, knocking it askew, seeing the 2 teeth that had fallen to the ground. Zane Gu rushed forward in distress to shield her, glaring at me fiercely. Kira Lu, was just playing a small joke on you. Yet you are so domineering and jealous, utterly unworthy of being the mistress of my Marquis household. If you know what's good for you, I'll elevate you to the status of a concubine. If you don't, then just wait to be scorned and abandoned by everyone in the capital. Let's see who would dare take you after being rejected by the Marquis's household. You'll have no choice but to shave your head and become a nun for the rest of your life. Just a joke. I watched coldly as the man I had devoted myself to for years, after the old Marquis passed away, the mediocre and untalented Zane Gu inherited the title of Marquis. In just 3 short months, he not only bungled the tasks assigned by the Emperor but also offended many officials due to his overweening arrogance. The Emperor completely abandoned the Dingen Marquis estate. The Marquis estate quickly fell into decline, ostracized by the court and reduced to utter poverty. Even the lowliest street patrol soldiers could trample over them. It was out of a bit of affection for his youth that I supported and encouraged him. I even persuaded my father to assist him. He knelt before my father, crying and swearing that if he ever betrayed me in this lifetime, he would be struck by lightning and die a miserable death. In just 2 short years, he climbed into the center of power. But he had long forgotten his original vow. Now they even have the audacity to say that making me a concubine would be an honor. I did not hide the disgust in my eyes and turned to my parents. Father, mother, let the marriage with the Marquis's family be called off. I am willing to marry into the Qin family. Father looked at me, both startled and moved. Kira, but you are the legitimate daughter of the general's manor. Marrying into the Qin family would truly be a disservice to you, father. I interrupted with a smile. The Qin family is righteous and noble. When the nation faced crisis, they stepped forward to donate provisions to the border troops. Such integrity is rare in this world. Moreover, Qin Yu is now the top scholar of the imperial examination, a student of the emperor. In time, he will surely bring honor to his ancestors. Marrying into the Qin family is no disservice to me. One is a concubine's daughter who stole her legitimate sister's marriage, coveted wealth and status, and even attempted to tarnish her sister's reputation. The other is a noble and upright legitimate daughter, who dares to take responsibility and married into the general's family out of gratitude. The difference is as vast as heaven and earth. And the contrast is immediately clear. Many people present were moved to tears, feeling guilty for having misunderstood me earlier, and were even more disgusted by Lu's actions. Zane Gu, however, seemed to be provoked by something and frantically stopped us. Kira, the marriage between the Marquis's residence and the General's residence was decreed by the Emperor. Elle was brought into my household with a grand wedding procession, making her the principal wife. However, I never said I wouldn't marry you. If you leave today, it will be the General's residence that defies the imperial decree. Mother gritted her teeth in anger. The Emperor's decree was for the legitimate daughter of the General's residence to be the wife. It is your Marquis's residence that has gone too far, and now you dare to shift the blame, Zane Jiyu said matter-of-factly. Then I'll just make Kira a co-wife. Won't that solve it? Since ancient times, there has only been one principal wife. A Pingqi may sound like a wife, but in reality, she is just a higher-ranking concubine. The words were faultless. Yet everyone could see that this was a slap in the face to the General's mansion. My father was so enraged that he clutched his chest, gasping for breath, and nearly fainted. My mother's eyes were red with fury. She wanted to seek justice for me but was left speechless by the pressure. Elle Lu snuggled into Zane Gu's arms with a sway of her hips, her face beaming with a triumphant smile. Kira Lu, you're still beneath me after all. Come over here and kneel to serve me the mistress's tea. Elle Lu's maid yanked me so hard I stumbled. My mother rushed to intervene in a fury, but the Hu mansion servants, emboldened by their master's influence, shoved her to the ground. Elle Lu raised an eyebrow. Madam, this is the Hu mansion's private affair. If you insist on meddling and end up getting hurt, you've only got yourself to blame. I helped my mother to her feet and cast a cold glare at that despicable couple. Zane Jiyu curled his lips into a condescending smirk. A married daughter is like spilled water, impossible to take back. From now on, I am your master. Come kneel before me. And Elle. Seeing that I remained still, two servants pressed down on my shoulders, kicked the back of my knees, and forced my head down toward the ground. I gritted my teeth, bracing myself against the floor. Just as my head was about to hit the ground, a sudden loud shout came from outside the door. Imperial decree has arrived. The Marquis's residence is to receive the edict. I felt a wave of relief and let out a sigh of relief. The timing was just right. When I turned around, I couldn't help but freeze in surprise. Accompanying the eunuch who was to read the imperial decree was none other than Qinyu. He was followed by a line of imperial guards. The eunuch glanced at him and, with a smile, handed the decree over to him. Lord Shu, since this decree is what you requested, you may read it yourself. Qinyu politely accepted it, his cool gaze sweeping over the crowd. When his eyes met mine, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. The Marquis's household receives the decree. Zane Gu's face turned grim, a sense of foreboding stirring within him as the anxious Marchioness dragged him down to kneel. By the Emperor's decree, the Marquis of Dingen, disregarding the imperial order of marriage, conspired with Elle Lu to substitute the bride and deceive the court. The marriage alliance between the General's household and the Marquis of Dingen is hereby annulled. The Marquis of Dingen is stripped of his noble title and reduced to commoner status. Elle Lu, for her deception and lack of filial piety and righteousness, is ordered to marry Zane Jiyu as a lowly concubine, never to be elevated in status for life. Kira Lu, the legitimate daughter of the General's mansion, is virtuous, respectful, and serene, valuing loyalty and righteousness. She is now bestowed in marriage to the minister of the Dali Temple, Zane Jiyu, as his principal wife. The Imperial Astronomical Bureau shall select an auspicious day for the wedding. So it is decreed. As the words fell, the entire hall fell into silence. Zane Jiyu received the decree. Zane Jiyu stood tall and straight, his tone indifferent. Once despised by all as the son of merchants, he has now risen to become the Emperor's favored minister, appointed as the third-rank chief minister of the Dali Temple. Meanwhile, the once celebrated son-in-law of the General's mansion has, in the blink of an eye, been reduced to a commoner with nothing, one kneeling, one standing. The irony is beyond measure. Zane Jiyu was deeply provoked and roared in disbelief. Impossible! How could the Emperor strip me of my Marquis title? How dare you forge an imperial decree? Do you have a death wish? He wanted to lunge forward, but was kicked to the ground by the imperial guards standing nearby. Eunuch Lin by the Emperor's side sneered contemptuously. Zane Jiyu, You're now a commoner daring to lay hands on a court official. I think it's you who has a death wish, isn't it? Zane Jiyu scrambled over and grabbed the hem of Eunuch Lin's robe. Your Excellency, I must see the Emperor. There's a misunderstanding. I did not defy the imperial decree. I will marry Kira Lu. Enough. Marry Miss Lu as a concubine for your Marquis household. Eunuch Lin disdainfully pulled back his sleeve. Miss Lu's status is such that she could easily be a person of high standing. Marrying you was already a stroke of luck brought by the accumulated virtue of your ancestors. Yet you failed to cherish it. You even intended to make her a concubine and publicly humiliate the general's mansion. If we don't deal with you, then who should we deal with? You need to understand, it's not because of the Marquis's estate that you can marry Miss Lu, it's because she is willing to marry you that the Marquis's estate can bring honor to the ancestors. Someone as clueless and foolish as you, who doesn't even realize it, deserves to see the estate ruined in your hands. He glanced at El Lu hiding behind Zane Jiyu and clicked his tongue, utterly foolish. After saying this, he nodded to his father and turned to leave. As soon as he left, El Lu cried out and threw herself at Zane Jiyu. Husband, I don't want to be a lowly concubine. You promised me you'd make me your official wife and love only me in this lifetime. The Dowager Marchioness was so furious that she slapped her with a sharp smack. It's all because of you, this shameless wretch. You seduced my son, driving him out of his mind to abandon Kira, a proper legitimate daughter, and marry you. This seductive vixen. Now it's come to this. My son has lost his Marquis title, and the Marquisate is gone, and you still only care about the position of the principal wife. You, this troublemaker who ruins the family, get out. I would rather risk my old life than let you step into the Jiyu family's door. El Lu cried until her face was covered in tears, collapsing weakly into Zane Gu's arms. After all, she was the woman he loved, so he spoke up in her defense. Mother, I won't abandon El. No matter what, our marriage is known to everyone in the capital. If you drive her out now, you'll be taking her life. If she doesn't leave now, it will be the death of me. The Dowager Marchioness pulled the hairpin from her head and pressed it against her throat. It's this wretched vixen who has brought ruin upon our Marquis household. If you continue to shield her now, I will shed blood right here. Zane Jiyu turned pale with fright and rushed to stop her. But El Lu held on to him tightly, refusing to let go. Husband, you cannot abandon me. Zane, today it's either her or me. Do you want to watch your mother die before your very eyes? Zane Jiyu was about to go crazy. Just as he was about to shake off El Lu, she cried out loudly, Husband, you can't abandon me. I'm already carrying your child. Zane Jiyu turned his head abruptly, his face filled with ecstatic joy. Is it true? El Lu, with reddened eyes, nodded weakly. It's been over a month. The doctor says it's a boy. As soon as the words were spoken, everyone's expressions changed, filled with utter contempt. How shameless. They've been carrying on without a proper matchmaker, and she's already pregnant, yet she still brings out the blood-stained handkerchief to humiliate herself. She's engaged in nothing but the deeds of a prostitute, and she dares to slander her legitimate sister by accusing her of having an affair with a mountain bandit. I think she's the filthiest one of all. If she were my daughter, I'd strangle her myself to spare the family the disgrace. The Dowager Marchioness listened to these words like a duck being choked, her mouth agape, unable to utter a sound for a long time. Zane Jiyu was overjoyed to the point of forgetting himself. Mother, you have a grandson. This is my first child. El is the one who has brought honor to our family. Please, for the child's sake, accept her. The hairpin fell to the ground, the elderly lady who seemed to age decades in an instant. Her expression pained and complex as she closed her eyes and allowed the servants to support her as she left. I watched the two of them embracing with a cold gaze and unceremoniously signaled for two imperial guards to step forward. It was only after El Lu was restrained that she reacted, her face filled with terror. Kira Lu, what are you doing? You slander me. Incite your servants to push and shove my mother, and force me to kowtow. What do you think I'm going to do, considering you are with child? You may kowtow 50 times and slap your face 30 times. El Lu screamed. No, you can't do this to me. Unfortunately, no matter how much she cried and made a scene, it couldn't change the outcome. Gu's eyes were wide with fury. Kira Lu, if you have a problem, take it out on me. Don't you dare hurt Elle. His arrogant assumption that I was acting out of heartbreak and seeking revenge made me sick to my stomach. Do you really think you can get away with this? Kowtow 100 times and slap yourself 100 times. Amid the cheerful sounds of clapping and kowtowing, my father, mother, and I carried the dowry away. Qin Yu caught up with me and took out a butterfly-shaped jade pendant from his chest, handing it to me. This is a family heirloom left by my mother, meant for my future wife. Please don't disdain it, keep it as a token for now. I will prepare the betrothal gifts as soon as possible and come to your home. Wait for me. I caressed the smooth texture of the jade in my hand, feeling deeply moved, and my eyes immediately welled up with moisture. Joyuan Mountain, it was you who saved me. In my previous life, I had been searching for the owner of the butterfly-shaped jade pendant, but I never met them before I died. At this moment, I finally remembered that after marrying Zhang Jiyu as a concubine, Qin Yu went to serve in the military at the harshest border. Qin Yu hesitated for a long moment before nodding gently. Your heart only belongs to Lord Dingen, and I was afraid you wouldn't welcome me. A deep sense of sorrow spread through my heart, yet at the same time, I felt incredibly fortunate. After 2 lifetimes apart, it turns out the right one has been by my side all along. I swallowed the bitterness and joked with a smile. Didn't you already get engaged to Elle Lu? Why didn't you give this jade pendant to her? The moment I asked, I regretted it. The tenderness overflowing in Qin Yu's eyes made me feel utterly at a loss. Nature is left for you. It has always been you I wanted to marry, but I knew I wasn't worthy. When the general's manor offered me their second daughter, I knew she had dealings with Zhang Jiyu. I was surprised by his frankness. You knew, then why did you come to marry as agreed? He smiled. Because I guessed she would switch the marriage, and I expected you would agree to marry me. This man, he left nothing to chance. Truly, no merchant is without cunning. No wonder they say passing the imperial examination with top honors leads to success, and even allows the emperor to exceptionally promote one to the position of chief minister of the Court of Judicial Review. He reached out, paused near my ear, then tucked a stray strand of hair behind it. All my schemes are meant to marry you. If you'd like me to become the prime minister, I can do that too. I panicked and covered his mouth, afraid his next words would be about striving to become the emperor for my sake. With flushed ears, I whispered softly, you should go back. I'll wait for you. Returning to the general's mansion, I saw Aunt Yang, who had sneaked out of the ancestral hall, and she beamed with delight upon noticing that I had come back as well. Eldest miss, were you rejected by the Marquis's household? I told you, my daughter is the true golden phoenix. You insisted on humiliating yourself. How does it feel to be thrown out by the Marquis's family? The position of the Marquis's wife rightfully belongs to my daughter. From now on, I will be the mother-in-law of the Marquis of Dingen. You should show me some respect. If you manage to please me now, I might put in a good word for you on my daughter's homecoming day, so that my son-in-law might take you in as a lowly concubine. I looked at her deliberately straightened back and scoffed. What? Has Aunt Yang not heard the news yet? The Marquis of Dingen's household is no more. Your daughter did marry Zhang Jiyu. Just as you wished. She'll be a lowly concubine for the rest of her life. Aunt Yang widened her eyes in disbelief. Impossible. My daughter is the legitimate wife of the Marquis's household, the head of the family. You're just jealous of her. I shrugged, believe it or not. With that, I turned and walked away, not bothering to look at her furious, contorted face as she cursed. My marriage with Qin Yu was set for 2 months later, and the princess consort specifically invited me to attend the Chonghua banquet. While enjoying the flowers in the back garden with my maid, I unexpectedly ran into Zhang Jiyu. I don't know what methods he used, but he actually managed to sneak into the princess's mansion. He looked at me with a heartbroken expression. Kira, how have you been these days? Frowning, I stepped back to keep my distance. Zhang Jiyu, how I've been has nothing to do with you. If you don't want me to have you thrown out, leave now. He paid no heed and grabbed my arm, professing with feigned affection. Yua, I was wrong. I was deceived by Elle Lu's pretended gentleness and kindness. She seduced me not out of genuine love, but merely to secure the position of the Marquis's wife. A woman as selfish, greedy, and vain as her is simply not worthy of being compared to you. Ever since you left, I've been unable to taste my food or sleep at night. It was only then that I realized the one I love most has always been you. Without you, I feel like a soulless puppet on strings. I've thought it over. As long as you come back, I won't mind that you're engaged to Chinyu. The position of the principal wife is still reserved for you. Perhaps I've heard too many disgusting words. For I felt not the slightest ripple of emotion in my heart, so calm, in fact, that I almost felt like laughing. If I marry you, what about Lu? He waved his hand dismissively, as if it were obvious. She's just a plaything, not even worthy of holding your shoes. My household can afford to keep a lowly concubine for food and board. It won't affect your position as the principal wife in the slightest. Ultimately, the flower of understanding is what one seeks. Yet one cannot bear to part with wealth and honor. Zane Gu's selfishness made me regret my past blindness once again. The maid beside me couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. If young Master Gu's thick skin were used to build a city wall, no sword or spear could pierce it. When you were a marquis, my lady still didn't fancy you. Now that you're a second-hand commoner, how dare you dream of her marrying down to you? Why don't you just die of wishful thinking? Being insulted by a mere maid, Zane Gu's face turned extremely ugly, furious and humiliated. He shouted behind me, Lu, if you don't marry me, I'll go out tomorrow and spread the word that I've already taken your virginity. Let's see if Chinyu would still want a used woman like you. My face turned cold, and I was about to lash out when Zane Gu's collar was suddenly grabbed from behind. Before he could even scream, Chinyu shoved his head into the lotus pond nearby. Your mouth is so foul, young Master Gu. Let me help you wash it clean. The pond water gurgled with bubbles, then quickly fell still. Chinyu only released his grip and pulled Zane Gu up when his limbs went limp. The Grand Princess soon arrived with her attendants. Zane Gu lay on the ground like a dead dog, clutching his neck. The Grand Princess wrinkled her nose in disgust and ordered the servants, "Throw him out, what a nuisance. He's dirted my entire pond of lotus flowers." A warm cloak was draped over my shoulders. I turned my head and exchanged a smile with Chinyu. After the banquet ended, Chinyu insisted on escorting me back to the general's mansion, but halfway there, we nearly collided with someone. The coachman shouted through the carriage curtain, "Young master, someone is blocking the way." A pregnant woman. Chinyu gently reassured me before speaking, "If there's someone in the way, take a detour. First, take Miss Lu back to the general's mansion." The coachman hesitated to speak. "The one blocking the way is the concubine of the Gu family. Miss Lu Lu and Zane Gu are truly birds of a feather." No sooner had Zane Gu finished his insincere act with me than Lu came to pour out her lovesickness. "Young Master Chin," she called out in a delicate, pleading voice from outside. Seeing Chinyu emerge, she rushed forward with red-rimmed eyes. Looking pitiful, Chinyu took 2 steps back. "Miss Lu, if you have something to say, speak plainly. I have important matters to attend to." Twisting her handkerchief, she wore an expression of humiliation and brokenness. "I know you will never forgive me. I came today to tell you that I had no choice. On the day of the wedding, it was my sister who didn't want to marry Zane Gu. She drugged me and forced me to switch places in the bridal sedan. By the time I woke up, my purity had already been violated by Zane Gu. I wanted to end my life, but I couldn't bear to watch you be deceived by Lu's vicious facade and marry a venomous, scheming woman. If that happened, I wouldn't be able to rest in peace even in death." Her face was streaked with tears. "The one I've always admired is you. The man I wanted to marry is you. But I know I have no right to face you, and I dare not hope to marry you. I only wish for your happiness in the rest of your life." Lu's acting skills have always been impressive. Back at the general's mansion, she managed to deceive many with this very talent. She thought herself unbeatable in the world. But Chinyu turned out to be the exception. Her voice was nearly hoarse from shouting. The chilly water on the handkerchief was almost ineffective and couldn't squeeze out any more tears. Yet Chinyu remained completely unfazed. The look in his eyes, like that of a clown, made her grow increasingly stiff with anxiety. Qin Yu gave a hollow smile. Miss Lu, you claim that Zhang Jiyu violated your innocence on your wedding night, but this belly of yours, it certainly wasn't the result of a single night's violation. Lu's face paled for a moment, and she was about to say something when a figure burst out with a furious roar. Zhang Jiyu grabbed her by the hair, his eyes blazing with rage. You wretch, haven't I treated you well? How dare you go out and seduce other men? Lu cried out in protest, but Zhang Jiyu was in no mood to listen. He was in a sorry state. Thrown out of the princess's residence, humiliated by everyone's ridicule, and could no longer hold his head high. All of this began because he married Lu. Recalling his past glory and comparing it to his current downfall, he lost control in a fit of rage, throwing punch after punch at Lu. It's all because of you. I lost my marquisate, Kira left me, and you dare to betray me. I'll beat you to death, you fickle, shameless woman. I don't know how long it had been, but it wasn't until Lu no longer had the strength to cry out in pain that Zhang Jiyu suddenly snapped out of it, jolted by the blood continuously flowing from beneath her. Qin Yu, afraid of dirtying my eyes, left the coachman to find a doctor and personally escorted me back to the general's residence. Not long after, the news spread throughout the capital. Zhang Jiyu had beaten his concubine to death in the street, and the very next day after he was imprisoned, he was poisoned to death in his cell. The murderer was none other than concubine Yang, who had bribed the jailer to mix a large amount of arsenic into Zhang Gu's food. When the officials found her, she had already hanged herself in the thatched cottage. A month later, Qin Yu and I were married in a ceremony personally presided over by the emperor. After our marriage, we had a son and a daughter, and Qin Yu treated me with unwavering devotion for 10 years. In this lifetime, the rest of my days were smooth and untroubled. The end.